How many cows do you need to quit your job? Now, caveat before we get into this real deep, it depends. It depends on the weather, it depends on the year, it depends on the market, it depends on all the factors. Do you have your equipment paid for? Are you renting? Are you buying? Yada, yada, yada. Are you doing all the work yourself? There are so many things that go into this. Not only that, but the type of operation. We have direct consumer beef right here. We have cow calf, we have feeders, we have backgrounders. We have the niche markets, we got the mini cows, we got the Highlanders, the specialty meats. Heck, there's even show cattle, buck and bulls, breeding stock. It goes way deeper than just how many cows you really need to quit your job. It all really revolves around how much you're profiting per animal. For the sake of this video, we're gonna assume a couple different types of operations. We're gonna do your standard cow calf operation, and then we're gonna do a direct-to-consumer beef business, and we're gonna run through some numbers quick. Okay, for a standard cow-calf operation, if you don't know what that is, it basically means that there's a rancher who is calving out the cows. So they have cows, then the cows get bred, and then they have babies, and then the rancher goes and sells the calves. So on average, it depends again on the market, many other things, but on average, a cow-calf operation could make anywhere from $50 per head to $200 a head. We're talking net profit there. Some of you are watching this video are gonna say, I've never made near $200 a head. Some of you are gonna say, I make way more than that. I want you to be aware that we're talking about making sure you're cutting out all the expenses first. And there's so many different variables that some of you are gonna be completely off those numbers. But we're talking averages. And let's say you can make that $50 per head. That's net profit. Let's say you can make that $200 a head net profit. Well, if we are saying that $50,000 is the annual salary you need to hit before you can quit your job, well, at $50 per head, that would mean that you need 1,000 head. So 50 times 1,000 gets you your $50,000 in net profit. You can net profit $200 a head. You only need 250 head of cattle. And again, that's net profit. So that's assuming that you have all the equipment, you have all that other stuff paid for. Now, what things do you need paid for if you have a cow-calf operation? Well, you are probably going to need some pasture. Most cow-calf operations operate with pasture, so you're going to need some land. You either need to buy the land or you need to rent the land. And depending on where you are in the country, it may make more sense to do either or. Depending on your specific situation, do you have family with land who will give you decent rent prices? Do you have family who you can buy your land from? Do you have a neighbor who is willing to do some seller financing? Do you qualify for any of the, government grants for first-time farmer, first-time rancher? There's all these different factors that play into your specific operation. And I'm just going to say that early in the video is do not let somebody discredit you or discourage you from getting into this just because they have a bad taste in their head or they have their own opinion of how things should be or how you should do it, because every operation is different. I've worked as a commodity broker, an ag lender. I've seen many, many, many different types of operations. And I've even seen so many people who say they're profitable, say they know what they're doing. And I see firsthand on their finances that they ain't making anything. So trust me, there are people who are making money out there who can help you. But there's also going to be a lot of people that have opinions that don't know what they're talking about. Those opinions also differ from different locations. So where I am may be completely different from where you are. If you go out into the mountains, obviously the land is going to be different. There's going to be wider variety of pasture that doesn't have the ability to get irrigated, and you might have to have more pasture to run the same number of head of cows. Whereas if you go way to the East Coast, you might have really, really lush pasture that could last you, a long time. And then if you go somewhere in the middle, you can deal with fluctuations of weather, not only the winter, but also the heat of the summer. And there's different crops in different areas like corn and feed and things like that that can get you by. Whereas other areas, you might have to buy more hay. Now that that's out of the way, your pasture, you also got to have your vet expenses. You need to have equipment for that, or you need to pay for it all from the vet. You have your fencing, you have your either horses or four-wheelers, depending on how big the pasture is that you might need to get by. You might not be able to do it on foot. And if you're able to rotationally graze, maybe you can do it all by foot. But it depends on your situation. Do you need a pickup and trailer, or do you have to hire it from somebody else? Do you have hay feeders for the winter, or do you even have a winter? Do you have to pay for your electricity, your water? All of these things are going to play into how many cows you need to quit your job with a cow-calf operation. Now let's bounce over to direct consumer. And before we get into the numbers, let's think about different things that direct consumer business will need. They are actually selling the beef direct to consumer. There's a couple different ways people do this. Some people will sell the live animal and then just have the person pick up their beef at the locker and they pay the locker for the beef. Or you have people who are actually selling the actual beef, and they're going to have extra licensing. They're going to have extra logistics that go into it. Are you shipping your beef? Do you have to pay for that? Do you have to get that figured out? Are you marketing your beef? Do you have extra marketing expenses? Since you're going direct consumer, you're not just taking your calves to the sale barn or taking them to your neighbor to feed for you. You actually have to calculate that. Not only that, but you have to fatten them out. Are you going grass finished, where you need a lot of grass? Or are you feeding them grain, where you have to fatten them out on grain? You have to pay for the grain. Do you need to pay for feed bunks? Do you need to pay for yard space, or do you need to rent it? Fencing also goes in that. The electric, the water, the vet bills, all that stuff that we talked about earlier. And then also a big one that people don't think about, storage of the beef. Before you get it sold, it has to stay frozen. You have to be able to keep that beef safe for consumption. That can really rack up your electrical bills if you're not prepared for it. Something that a regular cow-calf operation doesn't necessarily think about. But with those logistics often comes a little bit more profit. And no, this doesn't always mean it's more profitable to do direct consumer. If you're selling just to your neighbor and you live in an area that has a lot of beef, you might not make a ton more per animal. Or if you're selling the live animal and then they're picking up the beef at the locker, maybe you aren't profiting more than a regular cow-calf operation. But that's because there's less logistics to go into it. Often the easier that it is, the less you can really profit. That's not always the case. Sometimes you make the most money you can going to the sale barn. But on average, a direct consumer beef business, from what I've seen, can profit, $500 a head per animal. Now, if you want to make $50,000, that means you need 200 head. I've even seen some direct consumer beef businesses, especially in those niche or specialty meat categories, or even like a grass finish category, where they're profiting $1,000 per head. And in that case, you'd only need 50 head of cattle. I just realized, I think I told you 200 head. If you're profiting 500, it's definitely 100. If you're profiting 500 per head, it's clearly 100 head of cattle you need. And then if you're profiting 1,000, it would be 50 head of cattle. If you're selling 50 animals worth of beef, that is a lot of direct consumer factors to take into consideration. That's a lot of freezer space. That's a lot of logistics. There's gonna be a lot of extra work that goes into it. So I'm not saying that, just having 50 animals makes the most sense. It could be very well in your area that going the 1,000 head route and profiting $50 a head might be the best thing for you. Maybe direct consumer is best for you because you need to start really small, or in renting yard space might make more sense for you. Maybe you can find somebody who can, rent you just a little bit of yard space, and you can start with, 1, 2, or 3 head and go from there. That's what we're doing on this channel with this small direct consumer beef business on the side of my family's operation. We're showing that you can do it, start small and scale up from there after you build the profitable system. If you haven't got it yet, or you're not tired of hearing me say it, it depends on your operation. It depends on so many different variables. There's gonna be people who have cattle that watch this video and they're gonna say, that guy's an idiot, he doesn't know what he's talking about, because those numbers might not make sense for their area. It might not make sense for what they've grown up doing. It might not make sense for their operation. And if that is you, let me know in the comments, what makes more sense in your area? What have you actually seen? Are those averages way off from your area? Cow-calf, 50 to 200 is what I've seen. Direct consumer, 500 to 1,000. And yes, there are people that make less in direct consumer. I'm talking to people who specialize in certain beef areas, who market to specific consumers and actually sell the beef. How many cows do you need to quit your job? It depends. I'd appreciate it if you subscribe, share with 10 friends, and as always, God bless.